genre.
Welcome back to the Doctor's Companion Presents Doctor Who The Long Way Round, the weekly podcast where we review and discuss every episode of Doctor Who, one doctor at a time. I'm Cass Fredrickson.
I'm Nick Jimenez.
I'm Scott Corelli.
And today on the show, we'll be discussing The Web of Fear, the second Doctor's 12th story.
Yes, The Web of Fear, which aired from the 3rd of February to the 9th of March, 1968. This one is, most notable, I would say, for the introduction of old Lethbridge-Stewart, Brigadier nay Colonel.
Sure.
This is part of this season of stories, season 5 of Classic Who. That is, they're all sort of base under siege stories for the most part, and this one in particular is probably kind of the most famous of them, I would say, which is interesting because of the fact that, we're missing one of these episodes that has been animated.
Reconstructed.
Well, no, because a reconstruction is a different thing.
Okay.
Yeah. But anyway, this is kind of like the most famous one because of the Brigadier, because of the return of the Yeti, the Great Intelligence. So this is, and it's like the London Underground, lots of shooting down tunnels and things like that. I guess we can, we need to go back to the Abominable Snowmen, an episode or a story that we covered, a couple of long way rounds ago. Peter Bryant, who at the time was story editor, was really impressed with the Abominable Snowmen, which was written by Mervyn Haseman and Henry Lincoln. So when Bryant was promoted from story editor to producer of Doctor Who, he was pretty eager to bring back the monsters from that story, the Yeti, to have a rematch with the Doctor. So Haseman and Lincoln were commissioned to write a new Yeti serial, which they entitled The Web of Fear, 3 days before part 1 of The Abominable Snowmen was broadcast, which is how we get this story so soon after The Abominable Snowmen. So they decided to set The Web of Fear several decades after the events of The Abominable Snowmen, but they still wanted to feature Professor Travers, who had been introduced in that story, and played by Jack Watling. And so they approached him to return to Doctor Who, to figure out if he was interested. And he was like, yeah, sure. And they were like, well, we're going to have to make you up like an old man. And he's like, cool. And was excited to be able to act alongside his daughter, Deborah Watling, who, of course, is playing the companion, Victoria Waterfield. So he signed up and wore the old age makeup through this whole story. The director assigned to The Web of Fear was Douglas Camfield, who was making his return to Doctor Who after a 2-year hiatus since the Daleks' master plan. I love Douglas Camfield. I think he's a really, really good director in these old serials. We just talked about him with the Seeds of Doom fairly recently. But he also directed Terror of the Zygons, Inferno. He directed Planet of Giants, which we talked about not too long ago. And then he's done a couple of others as well that we haven't talked about yet, like The Crusade and The Time Meddler. Which is an all-timer. And then, of course, what I think is like, look, like Inferno is fantastic, but I think maybe one of his best episodes is The Invasion, which might be my favorite Cybermen, like classic Who story.
That one's fun.
I love it so much. So something to look forward to. But yeah, I just think that like as a director, I think he's really good at using the multicam structure of Doctor Who in a way that is like really dynamic, and doesn't feel like a sitcom like some other directors, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, dynamic was a word that popped up in my head a lot during moments of the story, particularly the close-ups. Yeah.
He does some really, really cool close-ups for sure. And then there's just like cool, like, just sort of dynamic framing of stuff where he'll do like, somebody kind of in profile close up, like on the right, and then something is happening in the background on the left, like stuff like that. It's just really cool. It's a really, he's just like a really inventive director for using the multicam format, which, is pretty prohibitive in terms of like the kinds of things that you can do. So pretty impressive director. So I was excited that this one was directed by him. So Camfield, though, was pretty unimpressed with the design of the Yeti from the Abominable Snowman, which he felt they looked more cuddly than menacing.
Oh, yeah.
So they agreed that changes should be made, especially since the original costumes had kind of deteriorated since they used them, which is crazy to think about because that was like only a few months before. So I don't know I forget what they made that out of, but yeah, they were already like kind of rotting away.
Wow.
So the updated Yeti, he added long claws and large glowing eyes, and made them a little more compact than the original Yeti.
They can travel by day.
Yes. And then also developed a scary Yeti roar sound effect for the creatures, which in the Abominable Snowmen had been completely silent. So those were some changes that he made to the Yeti, and I think all the better for it. It's a little, I don't know. The Yeti are interesting because I think they are cool. But at the same time, you're like, well, why haven't they brought them back? And I was like, I don't know, because they're just like robots covered in fur, like,
right.
Like there's not really much to them to return to, unfortunately. But I like their two appearances in, classic Who.
I think saving them for some sort of Sutek-esque reveal would be a mistake for sure. But I think their look fits really well into the kind of fantastical era that we're in right now. And so I think if they were just to pop up in an episode like that crab in Gridlock.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Like, it's these guys. Okay, cool.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, that would probably be a better use for them. Because like right now, they've only been used as like, basically like foot soldiers for the Great Intelligence. So it would be interesting to see if they could be used in another way, like without the Great Intelligence's involvement. I feel like that's how I would want to see them used, I think, if they ever were used again.
Yeah,
Cass, what do you think?
Like someone like steals the technology and like uses it instead of the Great Intelligence,
or maybe they're made autonomous somehow.
Oh, like a Yeti revolution?
Yeah, that would be interesting, right?
There's like one Yeti, like a Moses Yeti, that's like, we don't need to do this.
Yeah, I don't know, something like that. I don't know. I just don't think I'd want to see them just being controlled by something else again.
That's fair.
Because we've got it twice, and I'm like, between these two stories, I think I've had my fill.
I think like a Planet of the Apes, like the Doctor and like Ruby just like drop in and it's like, what the heck? And then it's just like a bunch of Yeti.
Yeah.
There's like one like Dr. Zayas kind of Yeti who's like a jerk.
Yeah. Love that. One character in this story that Canfield thought had a lot of potential was the character Colonel Lethbridge. The director felt that Lethbridge was akin to Lieutenant Colonel Colin Campbell Mitchell, whose leadership of the Argyll and Sutherland Highlanders during a 1967 uprising at Eden, now part of Yemen, had earned him the nickname Mad Mitch. Canfield revised the character's surname to Lethbridge-Stewart as a result, indicating a Scottish heritage. Originally cast in the role was David Langton, who, like a really cool, neat guy, backed out in late November because some other work came up instead. He was like, oh, good, I don't have to work Doctor Who. I'll go do something actually worth my time. Fuck this children's show. And then they offered it to Nicholas Selby, who turned it down. And then finally, Canfield was like, well, why don't we just like upgrade somebody else? And he took a look at this actor who was playing Captain Knight and was like, you, Nicholas Courtney, you're going to be this guy now. And he was like, okay, sure. And then they cast somebody else as Knight because Knight doesn't actually matter that much to the story. So that's how Nicholas Courtney got the role of Lethbridge-Stewart, which is, just like his most famous role, like it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, one of the great roles in Doctor Who, like one of his most beloved companions.
Absolutely. And it all just became a thing where it's like he was cast as another character, and then they're like, you're playing this guy now. And he was like, okay.
I'm only a 19-year-old boy.
Yeah, right. He's pretty young in this. Yeah, definitely. Let's see. Among the actors who were playing the Yeti was an actor named John Levine, who had already played an uncredited role as a Cyberman in the Moon Base, a story that we talked about a few years ago, but would soon be cast in the recurring role of Sergeant Benton.
That's awesome.
The tall, awkward, gangly-looking sergeant, a goofy guy.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's played a Cyberman and a Yeti, and then he would go on to play Benton.
Wow.
Yeah. So he's in one of those Yeti suits, and I seem to remember there's like a photo you can find of him, like with like the head off the Yeti, and he's like under there. Anyway, let's see. So when Deborah Watling and Fraser Hines were issued new contracts that would cover both The Web of Fear and Fury from the Deep, both 6-episode stories, so like the next 12 episodes of the show. Watling informed Bryant that she would be leaving Doctor Who after these 2 adventures. Bryant, who wanted Watling to remain on the show for at least 6 more stories to get them to the end of the series, was disappointed to learn that the actress felt that no, this is enough. I'm done. She was like, one calendar year of Doctor Who is more than enough Doctor Who for this gal. And she was done. She could not be convinced to come back for one last story. So that happened. Then just a quick funny story. Camfield wanted to be really authentic with this story, and so wanted to get some location filming in the London Underground itself. Unfortunately, London Transport demanded a massive fee, like a shooting fee, and indicated the filming would be restricted to just a handful of overnight hours. Instead, the decision was made to replicate the Underground in the studio on sets designed by their set designer, David Myers-Koff-Jones. And midway through the first episode of The Web of Fear, the BBC received a complaint from London Transport who were convinced that Camfield had somehow contrived his way into filming in the underground without permission or payment. Luckily, later episodes of this story were still filming, so London Transport were invited to the set themselves, which finally persuaded them that what appeared on screen was in fact a very convincing set rather than guerrilla filmmaking on the part of the Doctor Who team. That's how good this London Underground was.
Wow.
So, yeah. Reminds me of a story in Hunt for Red October, which is that like the Navy or whoever it was that was in charge of like submarines. I think it's the Navy, I assume. But yeah, they watched Hunt for Red October and they were like, who spilled the beans? Like who, like, did we give them access to a submarine? How do they know all this stuff? They got like really upset about how close the Hunt for Red October's submarine set designs were to an actual like military submarine.
Wow.
Yeah. And yeah.
Cass, have you reached that level of adulthood where you watch Hunt for Red October on the TV standing up?
No, I'm not in my dad era.
Okay, it'll come.
Anyway, that's the Web of Fear. And it's quite the story. Cass, how was revisiting the Web of Fear for you this time around?
I honestly forgot that only one episode of this was missing.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a really nice surprise. I think overall it kind of suffers from like 6-episode syndrome, where it meanders a little.
Yeah.
But I still had a good time. I was a little taken aback at how it ended.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it. But I was really struck by like Nicholas Courtney's presence in this. Like he just shows like the Colonel just like shows up and like takes over. And I'm like, I understand why they wanted him back in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Because he rules in this. And I really like Troughton. I don't know. I think like Team TARDIS is just like in like peak form in this one.
Mm-hmm.
And I like how the Yeti kind of look like Grimace. So it's, I don't know. It's like the sweet spot of like campy Doctor Who for me.
Yeah, that makes sense. Nick, first time.
That's right.
What'd you think?
No, I mean, if their goal was to build a new Yeti that was less cuddly and adorable, then they failed, unfortunately.
Yes.
But it is kind of like a fun. I've talked before about how cool visually and aesthetically I just think this era of the show is.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the dynamic paranoid Twilight Zone close-ups and paranoia and dread mixed with these kind of soft sort of marshmallow monsters. It's a fun vibe. And yeah, I pretty much echo what Cass said. Like, yeah, this meanders a bit. It's in one setting. It's kind of just moving pieces across a board. But to reinforce Nicholas Courtney, it having watched so much Doctor Who for this show, what struck me is Colonel Stewart is a pretty like standard character in a Doctor Who story. He's not like Rogue, where he's just got all this cool baggage, where it's like, whoa, this guy's all. It is all presence. Because we see this guy all the time, but he's just he's so cool. I mean, immediately compelling.
Yeah, there's like 5 other of him in this story.
Yeah.
There's 5 other versions of him that are not as good in this story alone. Yeah, I mean, I echo what everybody says. I mean, I think one of the highlights for me though is Travers, who I think is so fun in this story. The old age makeup they give him makes him look like Citizen Kane, like Orson Welles in that old age makeup, which is really fun. But I just like his whole vibe in this. I think it's a lot of fun. And definitely a highlight. I'm sad. I don't think he ever comes back. I think this is the last time we see of him, unfortunately. Because I would have loved to like check in with him again at some point, like him meeting the third. Like it would have been cool if Travers was like also working at Unit, you know. I just think that would have been fun. But I really like him because him and the Third Doctor I think would have been a really interesting pairing for at least one more story, you know.
Anna Travers I thought was really cool too. His daughter Anne Travers, and I don't know, maybe bring like her daughter into Unit at some point, like a legacy hire.
Sure. Yeah, I'd like to see another Travers come into the modern show. That would be fun. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, she kind of reminded me of Liz, like the companion from the Third Doctor's first season.
Yeah.
Where she's very independent. She's very like there's that line she has where the captain's kind of like schmoozing her, and he's just like, so what are you doing down here? And she's like, well, I decided when I was a little girl that I wanted to be a scientist, so I did. Like,
she's got gumption.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't know. She didn't really work for me. I thought she was a little bland, and didn't really give much. She didn't really have a lot to do. She was just kind of like standing around most of the time. And so like, I don't know. Travers was a little bit more of a character. I wish she was a little more, I don't know, just had like a little more personality than she does.
Because he's got that mad scientist vibe.
Yeah. Like I wish she had a little bit of just a sliver of that in her as well. You know?
He kept making this noise. I don't know how to describe it, but it would be like,
yeah,
kind of coot noises, old coot noises.
Yeah, lots of old coot noises. Definitely this story definitely outstays its welcome, and as good as the set, or as realistic as the set for the London Underground is, it is I think partially to blame for this story feeling so samey across 6 episodes. Because, you know, I think other 6-part stories, especially even in this era of like this season of all Base Under Siege stories, find ways to make that interesting in like by like changing up locations and things like that. You know, I think like I think ultimately Abominable Snowmen kept my interest a little bit better. This one I think has the it had the Lethbridge-Stewart of it all, which kept my focus on this one. But if he hadn't been here, I feel like I would think even less about this story than I do, which I still like it, but it's a lot of subway hallways and rails.
Yeah.
But I will say, shout out to the very silly, like web effects, because you know the titular web of fear, which goes from being a web to a fungus to like a mist. They refer to it as a mist at times. But I do like that we're covering this in October, because we got just full of spooky cobwebs.
Yeah,
which is really fun. But my favorite effects are when they get up to a tunnel, or the mist like is like breaking through a wall, and it's just rolling out of like a hole or filling up a tunnel. Like it looks really cool, I think. Cool, cheap 60s sci-fi effects. I was a big fan.
Like the fog or the mist.
Yeah, really liked that. Yeah. It's just like, it was like rolling. At one point it looked like they were blowing smoke into like bubbles. And the bubbles
it looked like soap bubbles.
Yeah, pouring out of the pouring out of the tunnels. It was like soap bubbles and smoke. It was cool. I don't know. It was a cool effect. I liked it. So, but let's get into the walkthrough. Nick, take us through part 1.
I will. I do. I kind of just have one question. This is mostly for my sake, but going back to what you said at the beginning, which is how this is kind of one of the more well-known stories of this season.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's mostly because this is the introduction of Lethbridge-Stewart?
I think that's certainly partially to blame, but it's also just if you're talking about a season full of base under siege stories, this is the most base under siege story. Like it is like
there's nothing else.
Yeah, there's nothing else going on. It's a base that is under siege.
I think like the iconography of like the Yetis in the tunnel, like the train tunnels, is like really, it's like culturally like it's like a big deal.
And all the pre-unit soldiers like getting into formation with their guns,
Yeah.
Which, by the way, man, I think everybody should just shoot guns like dorks again, because I feel like we would feel less romantic about guns if everyone shot guns like big old fucking dorks all the time. Just like to make real big motions to like get into formation on all fours. You know what I'm talking about?
I do.
Or like
yeah.
the guy, he has like a handgun and he gets down on two legs and then like really like takes aim and like it's a whole thing. I was like, man, I wish everybody shot guns like this, because like no one would give a shit about guns if they did. You're like, oh, a gun? You mean that thing that those dorks use? No, thank you.
You mean dork sticks?
Yeah, dork boomsticks? No, thank you.
Yeah, no, less. I'm trying to think of like who the most gun-fu Doctor Who character that we've gotten in like the new era, like the post-Matrix era, like River Song would have like a pistol, but she would always look really cool.
Yeah. I think it's just mostly just like random kind of soldiery kind of characters. Like I'm thinking about that scene in The End of Time when Mickey and Martha are like rolling around in fatigues and guns. Yeah. Like the worst thing that End of Time ever did.
Shaking our heads, listeners.
Yep.
The worst thing that End of Time ever did.
We don't talk about that, Scott.
Look at me. I'm cool because I'm holding a big gun. That means I'm cool now. I used to be a wee, but now I'm cool. Shut up. You're never going to be cool.
You don't deserve her.
Anyway, so kind of old business. Salamander kind of fuck the TARDIS basically, and like it's careening through space. Team TARDIS is like holding on. Jamie is like clinging to one of the bubbles.
Yeah.
He's like, I think I got it. And they're able to stabilize the TARDIS. And they're like, wow, that was crazy. I like the outfit Victoria finds for herself. Does it have any history, or is that just like clothes that she found?
I think it's just clothes she found.
I don't know.
Because sometimes, they do the move where like a companion will find something that belonged to a past companion.
Yeah.
Right.
Maybe it's Polly's dress, but I don't know.
I don't know. I feel like Polly's too short for Victoria or too tall for Victoria to wear.
That's true.
Some of her clothes.
That's true.
Mm-hmm. Polly's a little. She's a tall one. You'll like her, Nick. She's tall.
I'm excited. Yeah, I like tall people.
I know you do.
I trust them because I'm short. Like, oh, good. There's one here. Back on Earth, we do meet Travers. If you've seen Abominable Snowmen, it's a fun reunion, I imagine. He's having a real go with it with a colleague of his, Julia Silverstein, I think. I didn't write his name down. But over ownership rights of the Yeti robot from the Abominable Snowmen. And Julia's like, it's mine. You gave it to me. And he's like, no, I want it back because me and my daughter are doing stuff with the sphere to try and control it. And Anne is able to convince her dotty father to leave it and go back to doing their science. And as soon as they leave, the Abominable Snowman comes to life and kills Sylvia, Julia.
And then Travers drops the sphere on the ground and says Rosebud just before he dies.
Also Geppetto. I was getting like Disney Geppetto a little bit.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah.
The white.
For sure.
The TARDIS, they're like, it's weird. It's like we landed, but we haven't landed, and they're being like held in place. What did you think of it being like encrusted, that model, that the exterior shot of the TARDIS?
With like the web?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it is a web. It's so thick, it almost makes it look like it's like coated in sugar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the first hint of like what the, dare I say, the main enemy of this story is, which is spooky cobwebs.
Yeah, no, the listeners, the Yeti have guns, like ray guns, and they just kind of shoot the spray at people, the web.
Look out, that Yeti has a gun!
Oh, shit!
Not so cuddly now, am I?
It's really just weaponized silly string, right? Like that's basically what they're doing.
Yeah,
they have, like,
but it shoots out as a mist and then lands in a web, like cobweb. And then I don't know.
You kind of want them to be spiders.
Yeah, a little bit. I'm not really understanding the connections of all of the things. Like it's like there's cobwebs, and then there's Yeti, and then there's a floating great intelligence. And I'm just like, what do any of these things have to do with each other?
Like, what if the Daleks just shot hammers at you?
Oh my god!
And they never explained. Just wooden hammers.
They already have plungers, Nick.
That's true. So we meet the underground military team in the metro in an abandoned tunnel that they're going to detonate later. That we learn. There's that squirrely kind of Rita Skeeter journalist, that muckraker that everyone thinks is really shifty.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course, we meet Ann Travers, old man Travers. Captain Knight is one of the first people that we meet. It's interesting, that was the dude that Nicholas. What's called the Nicholas Brendan? Nicholas Courtney played.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They
Team TARDIS does some underground. They think they're in like a castle at one point. I think that's what the Doctor says.
Yeah. Well, when they appear behind like the grate.
Yes.
Like it's like the door is like shut with the metal bars.
Mm-hmm.
And Jamie thinks they're in jail, and the Doctor thinks they're in a castle. And then they see the rails, and
so they realize they're in the underground, and Jamie jumps on the track, and the Doctor's like, "No, you idiot! No,
you're gonna die!"
Huh?
Yeah. I just love that. I love that the London transport were like, those fuckers broke into the London Underground and did some guerrilla filmmaking. And I'm like, guys, how did they turn off the rails if that's the case?
Right?
How would they even have access to that? Come on. Use your brains.
Team TARDIS noticed these military men laying down like coils and coils of wire all along the underground. And at one point, the Dr. Jamie and Polly get separated, and the kid Victoria, and they get caught by one of the army guys. Was his name Arthur? Is that who catches him? He's like, "Oh, babes in the wood," and then they get taken back to the base.
What is his name? Arnold.
It's the guy that they call it's the staff sergeant, right?
Yeah,
he was call him staff.
He was great, big like what you know.
Yeah.
It was difficult in the in episode 3's animation because he looked identical to Brigadier. Like they looked exactly the same. So it was just like all of a sudden it would just look like Brigadier was talking like a completely different person.
And then part 1 ends with Victoria and Jamie in custody, and they learn that the reason that the military is there is to blow the tunnels, and like, but the Doctor's still there. And cut to the Doctor, and he's like hiding, like the Hobbit's hiding from the ring wraiths. He's like under a little tunnel as a Yeti with a mist gun is like menacing overhead, and that's the end of part 1.
No, because the end of part 1 is they put the mist over the explosion, and then he goes and he looks at it. He looks at it and he's like, "Oh, what's going on?" And then they blow the explosion, and then he gets blown back.
Yeah.
But like,
that's right.
The web contains the explosion, but he Patrick Troughton gets blown right into a 1-week vacation because he is not in episode 2.
He's gone.
Yeah.
Blows him right out of the episode.
Yeah, right into vacation time.
So right out of the gate, Cass, did you miss Troughton in part 2?
I think I think if it had been like 2 episodes in a row, I would have, but I liked that it was kind of it felt a little wheel spinny, but I didn't really mind it, I guess.
For sure.
Because I like Jamie and Victoria, and I was like, okay, so like what are they going to do without the Doctor?
That's a good point. Like they're entertaining enough.
I think if I had my druthers, though, I wish that episode 2 was the missing episode. Because I wish that the actual debut of Nicholas Courtney as Lethbridge-Stewart existed. It really sucks that that's the missing episode. Like we have all of the episodes except for one, and it's his first appearance. That really sucks.
Yeah.
No, it's a shame.
Yeah.
In part 1, when Victoria and Jamie were apprehended, there's this moment, like almost like a Telltale game, where they're like, "Are you alone?" And Victoria's about to be like, "Well, I mean, to define alone." And Jamie's like, "Yeah, we're alone. There's no one else here but us." And in the moment, I was like, "Yeah, shut the fuck up, Victoria. Like, what are you doing?" Like,
Yeah.
Good save, Jamie. But later, that turns out to maybe be a mistake, because while they're in holding, Jamie's like, "Oh, Crivens, it's my fault. I should have told them the Doctor was out there, and now they're going to blow him up to smithereens." And Victoria's like, "Oh, posh." Whatever.
Yeah. He's like, well, she says, "You shouldn't blame yourself, Jamie." And I was just thinking, yeah, you're right. He should blame you for screaming your brains out because you ran into a cobweb.
That's true. I forgot about the cobweb.
That's how they got caught.
That's the most relatable thing Victoria has ever done, and I will defend her.
That's great. I mean, no, they really are. All 3 of them are in fine form this episode.
Yeah.
So they send people out to go looking for the Doctor, or that Doctor bloke, as they refer to him as. Professor Travers realizes that he sees Victoria and Jamie. It's really cute how Victoria recognizes Travers first, and Jamie doesn't. And she's like, "Oh, come on, Jamie, look, it's old Travers from the Abominable Snowman episode, remember?" And Travers is
I like Travers' whole reaction where he has to like sit down because he's like, he's just like, Jesus Christ.
It's a little Narnia, this whole story.
Yeah.
Also just like the underground aspect maybe, and just like people aging rapidly, and like, "Oh, you haven't aged a day," like time passing differently.
Yeah.
And Anne is still a little skeptical, she's out and out, like freaked out. She's like, "What the heck's going on?" Oh, what do you think of the part where Jamie leaves Victoria high and dry to be like, "Go explain everything. Tell her how it all works. I'm going to go help Travers find the Doctor."
Yeah. And Victoria is just like, "Oh boy." And then
and then they do a callback to that at the end of the serial.
Yeah, that's right.
Kind of.
There's a bit too where they're like after they've exploded, they're like, "Oh, your friend was still out there? Oh man, that's too bad. We set off the explosion, so he's probably dead. That's really sad. I guess we just blew him up." And then when they realize that the charges didn't go off, they're just like, "You mean that motherfucker sabotaged our shit? You mean that he stopped that explosion from he's a traitor to this country,
to the crown,
and to the survival of that. We're gonna kill him." And it's just like, it's just some real Salem witch trials ass logic where they're like, if it's sad that he died, but they're mad that he's like a traitor for not wanting to die and sabotaging the explosion.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. No one likes the Weasley reporter guy. Anne gets this really cool little moment where he's like being a creep, and she's like, "Be careful, mister. I have a quick temper and very long claws." And I was like, "Oh yeah, hell yeah, fucking get him." Get his ass.
Get his ass.
And it is at this point that it is deduced by our heroes that someone in this like cabal of characters, this gallery of colorful characters, one of them has to be in league with the Yetis. And that's where kind of the paranoia spy werewolf aspect of the story is like, because it lasts the whole serial, is like, well, who's the mole? Who's in league with the Yetis? Did this work for both of you as like a recurring plot thing?
I kind of wanted it to be like played up more.
Mm.
Like, it felt kind of like an afterthought sometimes, where they're like, oh yeah, like one of us is supposed to be like an actual traitor, you know?
Yeah. I could barely keep up with the red herrings because they all look the same. So I was like, I have no idea. Like when it's finally revealed in the last episode who it was, I was like, okay.
Well, my favorite soldier, whose name isn't Lethbridge-Stewart, hasn't shown up yet. So.
Is it a certain driver? A certain cowardly driver. So so while
I'm obsessed with him. Oh my God, he's so great.
So while our heroes are out looking for the doctor, they come upon Evans is his name, a Scottish driver from another company.
I think he's Welsh.
He's Welsh. Thank you, Welsh. And just a total yellow-bellied coward this entire story.
Loves tobacco though.
Yeah, loves tobacco.
And chocolate.
And one thing you don't get when you get to cartoon mode is this is the shiftiest looking dude. To where you're like, well, he's the mole, right? But no, he's great. Just a straight arc. He never has a moment of redemption. He just kind of is like, no, I want to leave. I want to get out of here.
This sucks.
And he's not wrong.
He's not. It sucks. It does.
So at this point, the Doctor and Victoria and Jamie have all escaped supervision and have wandered out into the tunnels as the fungus is on the move. And part 2 ends with like the three of them being cornered, right? Like surrounded on all sides by the Yeti.
Yes. Yeah, there's a lot of almost every cliffhanger except for that first one is, oh no, the Yeti are here.
I think they're all variations on, oh no, the Yetis here. The Yetis are here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So at episode 2, when they meet Evans, Jamie's like, well, I have to go find the doctor. And they're like, you go, we have to go do other stuff. And Evans is like, I'll help the boy. I'll stay with the boy. And Jamie's like, oh, that was real nice of you to help. Shut the fuck up. I'm just using you as an excuse to get out of here.
To leave.
Yeah.
And in episode 3, they end up at Monument Station and have like a scuffle with the Yeti.
Yeah. I wish they would redo this animation. It looks like lazy CG animatics.
Yeah. I don't like the weird 3D of it.
No, it's weird. It's weird. They all look like Roblox. Like they just
very blocky.
Yeah, they're very blocky. It doesn't look professionally done at all. It almost looks like they saw something on YouTube and was like, oh, well, let's just take this.
No, it's like
which is wild because there's like official like animation credits for it. Cause like I watched them all. Like
wild.
No, it looks like something you make in computer class when you're learning about editing.
Yeah.
But it is in this way that we meet Colonel Lethbridge-Stewart, Cass. Even in chunky, blocky animated form, just how I was unprepared for how sexually charged the Brigadier, like Arwen and Aragorn, he's holding up a billy club to the Doctor's neck. And like, all right, easy now. Who are you? It's like, oh wow, this is how they met,
right? Like
he was like his prisoner. It's great. But it is a shame. But no, I mean, and then Lethbridge kind of like, all right, like I'm in charge now. I have my papers and everything. They return back to the base, to the bunker, and he has that bit where it's like, well, can I see your paperwork? And he's like, oh, good. I'm glad you don't take things at face value. So, just owning it immediately.
That's good.
Evans teaches Jamie about his life philosophy of always taking care of number one. This is the episode where the Doctor really starts to explain to the military people and us, the viewers, if we're unfamiliar with the engine, the machinations behind the Yetis, which is the great intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
And how, like, you know, we need the sphere, there's the model Yetis. There's a lot of moving parts. This kind of almost feels like a video game sometimes.
Mm-hmm. The great intelligence is an interesting villain, because I don't know that we ever really get a good sense of like what it even wants. Like why it's doing anything that it's doing, you know?
I like, is it in episode 3 where the brigadier is like, okay, like what is this great intelligence? Like, explain it to me. And the doctor's just like, I wish I could. I don't know.
He's a
and I kind of like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that he's just like, yeah, I don't know. I ran into it once and like, I know as much as you do, really.
Yeah.
And especially, and we won't go too far into it, especially the way they end up stopping him at the end of the story. It is very Eldritch. And like, no, you don't stop this thing. Or like, no, it's just still out there and can be anywhere and you can never escape it. It is very existential and spooky.
Yeah, we end up coming back around to it in the Snowmen. Like that's its next appearance.
That was my question. Wow, okay.
Yeah. Which it was the great intelligence had the record for like the longest time between appearances of a Doctor Who monster until the Giggle. And the Celestial Toy Maker. Yeah. But it's, and then in that it's like wanting a body. Like that's what it like that's its goal. That's what Moffat decided, was like, oh, it doesn't have a body, it should want a body. And so like that's what it's doing. And also wanting revenge, I guess, by messing up the Doctor's timeline or whatever. It'll be interesting revisiting that to figure out if we like can garner anything new, I guess, from what it wants. In general. It is also, I believe, in the Bells of St. John, it's also like the scary Wi-Fi. Like it is the Wi-Fi.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, we're all the way back here. They're like, I don't know. It's smart. It's omnipotent. That's scary. And it's got Yeti robots. Ooh.
Cassie, do you have any other general thoughts on the great intelligence, just like as a concept?
I don't know if I just had a thought, thinking about like, because like New Who is revisiting like gods in Doctor Who, or like guardians. Like, what if they had retconned the great intelligence to be like a guardian, or like one of these like celestial thing? Do you think that would, I don't know,
like of thought?
It's weird. Yeah.
Intellect. Like one of those.
Yeah.
That'd be really,
I like that. I like that idea for sure. That would be really, really fun. I would be very interested to see what RTD would do with the great intelligence.
Yeah. Because I kind of like that it's this unknowable, like, we don't know, like, because I don't know, I really want them to like come back to like the paranoia of it all. Because like if it can just like possess people, like we see in later episodes of this, like that's scary.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we don't because what surprised me by the end is it's not like they're with them. It is still out in space.
Yeah.
We never really learn where it is, so we don't know how far its reach is potentially.
So funny you bring that up, Nick, because apparently the intention was that the great intelligence's first appearance in New Who was not going to be the Snowman. It was going to be a little earlier, in a little episode called The Doctor's Wife. And House was originally meant to be the great intelligence.
Whoa.
And I think there was like some sort of rights issue, and with like creators and whatever and stuff like that, because like BBC has like different laws about stuff like that. And so they didn't get to use the great intelligence there. But yeah, the intention there was that House was the great intelligence, and that's where it ended up after this adventure.
Oh, that's so cool.
Interesting.
And so then the idea of the great intelligence possessing the TARDIS that is that is so much more scarier
Yeah.
than even House, which is scary enough. But the idea that the Great Intelligence would do that, whoa, that's intense.
That's really cool.
Michael
Yeah, that
Sheen
would have been a
playing-
really cool reveal. Not that episode doesn't already have enough cool reveals, but
Right.
yeah, the idea of that on top of everything else would have been like crazy.
Man,
So anyway,
cannot be so crazy when we get to that one.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it in a long time.
Yeah.
So this is the Doctor teaches, he's starting to trust the Colonel more and more, slowly allowing more and more like of his backstory to be known to this cool, exciting hot stranger who took him prisoner earlier, but now they're vibing. And episode 3 ends with it's Travers and his daughter. They find Weems, one of the army people, and he's been webbed. They're like, no, Weems,
Yeah.
Weems, and then you
Yeah.
think that they're gonna get it next. It's another like, oh no, here come the Yetis.
Yeah, the Yeti POV shot, which is a perfect example of how shoddily these animations are done, and how sort of like vaguely disrespectful I think they kind of are to the source material, because you see the POV shot of the Yeti going after Travers and you're like, okay. And then in the next episode they replay the previous thing, and then you get the POV shot directed by Douglas Camfield and you're like, that rips. Like like how this is so much better. Like it's such a better, like more dynamic shot than what they attempted to do in the animation, which just
Right.
feels very like haphazard. I don't know.
Which is so like ridiculous because like that part literally exists.
I
Like
know.
they could have just like one for one. Like,
I know.
That's so
I know. So
Kind of goes
crazy.
back to what you were saying, Scott, about this doesn't feel professional
No.
yeah.
Yeah.
with respect to, it's great that we even have this in any form, but
Yeah. Yeah.
so Travers gets taken by the snowmen and Anne is left. And so there was a part, I think this was in part 3, where Victoria is about to go get, she's coming back with tea for everyone. And she overhears Anne being like, well, what if the Doctor is controlling the Yeti? Because you only see the Doctor when the Yeti's come. And Victoria's like, I'm not dealing with it. I'm out.
Yeah. Also, I think we skipped over the really the great sort of like Death Star trench run planning scene where they're all watching the slides in the room and talking about. So here's the thing about London right now. It's fucked. That's why we're all down here. We're not going to show you any of it because that would be really expensive. But trust me, it's fucking bad up there.
Yeah.
The
Yeti's on the streets of London.
Yeah. Cobwebs everywhere. The mist came in. It turned into the cobwebs. Then the Yeti showed up, and we came down here because we're like, we have to do something. So that's how we got here. And we're like, I don't know. It was like a really like. It sucks that we don't get to see any of that, but at the same time, I'm like, that's a really kind of ingenious way to be like, these are the stakes. We can't show you any of it, but it's like, because we have to save money, but it's bad up there.
They've taken Parliament.
Yeah. There's a Yeti on the throne.
Now I just want to see art of one of these like friendly Yetis with like those powdered wigs on.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Like just
trying to give
for Yeti country.
Yeah. One, Tori starts giving a speech, and all the other Yetis are like, boo, like rattling away, making a bunch of noise.
I like that because that suggests that the Yetis are not Tories.
In a stunning turn of events, the Yeti have appeared to adopt liberal politics. The fuck's going on?
Should we just let the Yeti
Let the Yeti take over? So, when's the shootout? Oh no, but okay, but my favorite moment of the trench run meeting, Scott, thank you, is when they show they show like what the new Yeti look like, and Travers and the Doctor have that kind of like oh, well, those look different. They're like, oh, yeah, these must be the Mach 2. And they kind of lose themselves chatting about how different they looked. And it was like, oh, yeah, these two did go on like a whole adventure together.
They're like, yeah, they look a lot cooler than I remember them looking before.
Not as cuddly, that's for sure.
Much scarier. These ones have guns.
And episode 4 is when the Doctor trusts the Colonel enough to reveal the truth behind his TARDIS. He's like, I know what the great intelligence is because I have a craft that can travel time and space. And the guy, the lower officer with Stewart is like, bullshit. And Stewart's like, this craft, if it were real, could it get us out of here? And the Doctor's like, yeah. And he's like, okay, well then priority 1 is rescuing this craft.
Yeah. I just love that Lethbridge-Stewart is immediately, like, upon having a single conversation with the Doctor, you know, he's immediately like, I can't explain it, but I like this guy's vibe. Like, he just...
I trust this man with my life.
He's all in. Like, he's just all in. Like, one Death Star meeting, and suddenly he's like, I'm all in on this guy. I like him.
Well, I have a question. There was a part where no, because the brigadier, the colonel has the idea of like, well, I'm going to take some boys of mine and we're going to go steal the TARDIS back. And this ends up being a huge, if not mistake, it definitely pays a heavy price because Stewart's the only survivor of that. He gets in and he's like, the Yeti, they're all dead. All my guys are dead. And he's so shaken. And I'm like, oh, this is really cool because this is the kind of a turning point in this dude's life where,
yeah.
And what was the episode where we meet him in the 80s and he's at a college and his memories are gone?
Battlefield? Oh, no. That's
Modern Undead.
Modern Undead, yes.
Yes, because it's the Yeti that is the first to be like, Yeti? Oh, that's right, the Yeti. I'm like, oh, that's so cool. Like, that really shook him.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, he's not just the only, it's him and Evans are the only 2 survivors left because Evans is the only survivor of his little team of 3 guys. Because he's a coward and won't go into the web. He's like, you guys are idiots. I'll hold the rope.
And he's right. They die.
They immediately die. He's like, I told you this was going to happen. And I didn't think it was going to happen that quickly, but Jesus. Yeah. So he comes back and then Brigadier's crew gets attacked by the Yeti.
Cass, did you like the Doctor and Anne's chemistry? Because this is their team. They're in kind of cahoots this part, trying to control the sphere.
I think that's kind of why she reminded me of Liz a little, because she kind of has companion energy, but like it's not quite there, you know?
Yeah.
There's a layer, it's a level below companion where you're like, okay, I trust you enough to be in cahoots with you on this adventure.
Right.
Even if like we're not going to hang out after this, but like you're cool.
Yeah, I mean, isn't that like that's kind of like her vibe in that first season of Pertwee, because she's not technically a companion because she never travels in the TARDIS. So she's just sort of like an ongoing what you're talking about, Nick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like she gets assigned to like the Doctor's lab.
Right.
And she's basically like babysitting him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then kind of catches that infectious energy that the Doctor has where they're able to get you to do things you didn't, you would have like thought were naughty just minutes ago.
Right.
We do get a glimpse of the outside world. We get a really fun prolonged for sure, but a fun shootout with the Yeti outside. Reminded me a little of Dalek Invasion of Earth.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. It reminds me a lot of another story, but we haven't gotten to it yet, but I'm excited. If you like this, you ain't seen nothing yet. I can tell you that.
Cass, did you like this shootout? This prolonged shootout?
I liked the guy that has like the giant like grenade launcher thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's cool.
Grenades, the Yeti's only weakness.
Yeah, it's like their kryptonite.
Their kryptonite are grenades.
If either of you can help me out, I was struggling to keep up with the business with the missing Yeti models.
Yeah, I don't know
The models control the Yeti, or what do the models represent?
I feel
like
they're like trackers, right?
Yes.
They're like victim trackers, essentially.
Victim trackers,
Yeah.
they're like homing beacons or whatever. Like they draw the Yeti toward them.
And they get planted on you.
Yeah.
People.
Yeah.
And that ends with they're all like, "Open up your pockets. We're being tracked. Someone put a tracker on us." And then once again, oh no, the Yeti are coming.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
The episode 4 episode out sticks in my head because the guy, like Travers, is like mean mugging the camera because he like comes back and it's revealed that like the professor is under the Yeti's control or whatever.
The Travers intelligence.
Yes. But like that shot of like him standing next to the Yeti and it like close up on his like crazy old man face, like for some reason that just like stuck.
Yeah.
Sure. It's like how they used to do like dissolves in old Disney movies,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so Travers got possessed by the Great Intelligence, and episode 5 starts with the intelligence through Travers monologuing about like this whole thing was a trap, you idiot. Because you beat me, I was like, well, Daddy needs that sweet, sweet intellect. So get ready. You're going to be part of the Great Intelligence.
What if the Great Intelligence only allowed people to call it Daddy?
Daddy wants to be potty, Doctor. Daddy wants to be made of snow. Is that what it was?
That's so cursed. Oh my God.
I'm the Great Intelligence, but please call me Daddy.
Oh, I hate that that's part of your thing. I always forget about it. It's the worst thing about you.
Just Troughton being like, Daddy's going to kill us.
What? I mean,
Daddy's sending the Yeti after us.
if it wants
my
to be
God.
called Daddy, who started calling it the Great Intelligence? I don't know. The Victoria gets taken captive and taken back aboard. Was it whose ship was that? Was it the Great Intelligence's ship? Is it
Ship?
the Yeti ship?
I think it's just like their base.
Their base?
Yeah, I don't know. It's like because it looks alien.
It does look
right?
alien,
Like yeah.
Oh, are you talking about Piccadilly Circus?
I guess so.
Yeah.
The headquarters for the Great Intelligence.
When
Yeah,
Travers gets free, where he's like, "Oh, where am I?"
Oh, yeah. That's that's Piccadilly Circus station.
That's a real place.
Oh.
Yes.
It looked like an
I mean,
alien
it's
ship.
a set. They're not really there, but yeah.
Yeah.
It's the Piccadilly Circus station. It's
It
like
was the beams. The beams
London's
through
Times
me.
Square,
Yeah. I've seen the
Oh,
outside on
okay.
TV and stuff.
Yeah, with like the
Okay.
fountain and stuff.
Is that Day of the Doctor where they shot at Piccadilly's? Oh no, that's Trafalgar Square, where he's like hanging off the TARDIS.
Yeah, no, this is Piccadilly Circus is in Rose. She's like,
Yes,
it's like when you're showing her Rose is just normal everyday day of just like a London teen, cool London teen, and she's goofing off with with Mickey by the fountain, and they're like feeding each other chips or something like that. Yeah,
Sure.
That's Piccadilly Circus.
Nice.
Anyway.
Yeah.
And this is but directly beneath that.
My favorite part of this episode, bar maybe even the whole serial, is the while monologuing, the Great Intelligence is like, "Yes, I will put you in this groovy triangle that I made, and it will suck your intelligence out, and I'll have it then, and your body will be like that of a baby, and you'll have baby brains, and you'll have to like grow back up." And so there's this moment later where the Doctor takes Jamie aside, and he's like, "Jamie, I just want you to know that I think we're going to get Victoria back, and we'll win the day, but if I do get baby brains, I will need you to look after me until I grow up again." And Jamie's like, what? And then they get interrupted before they can talk about it more.
Amazing.
It's great. So Victoria and Travers are now together at Piccadilly. And it's once again reinforced that like someone is a mole. There has to be somebody. They're able to, is this the part where the Doctor gives Jamie the sphere, and it's like, we need you to go catch a Yeti and control a Yeti and bring the Yeti to us so that we'll have a Yeti of our own.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And then this one ends with, like we said, this big, thick, goopy mist, strong enough to break through a brick wall. And it's seeping in, about to consume our heroes.
Hell yeah.
It's great.
Oh no, the mist is coming.
Oh no, the mist is coming. Yes. Episode 6, I wrote in my notes, now we have a Yeti, ho, ho, ho.
Nice.
Because they are able to hack a Yeti and bring it to their side. We learned that the mole, so to speak, is Arnold, but I kind of agree with you, Cass. It would have been kind of more compelling if a human actually did betray their species and made a choice and wasn't just like a zombie.
Yeah. Or like they like, I don't know. I think because there's like so many moving parts, I think that it kind of loses the thread of like one of us is like a mole.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I because it feels like kind of like a half-baked like Cold War thriller, and I kind of want those vibes amplified, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
No, right on the money. Like, yeah, Cold War thriller, but half-baked. And you're like, I want the full, like, John
I
Le
want
Carre.
the full, like, which one of us is gonna, like, it could be anyone, you know?
Yeah, like The Thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's also a little bit of like Romero's like zombie trilogy mixed in here too.
Yeah, the bunker, the civilians and the military getting mashed together.
Yeah, and like everybody like on high alert, you know, the tension and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And much like the zombies, the Yeti are little more than like a place setting, you know, like it's like, you know, it's not really like about them necessarily.
I like the moment in episode 6 where Jamie is just alone, just like shivering like Shaggy with his spear, being like, Yeti?
Yeah.
Yeti come? Yeti come. So the doctor agrees to be strapped into the triangle and absorbed, and at the last second, Jamie intervenes, and the doctor's like screaming, like, no, you idiot, you're going to ruin everything. Stop, fucking stop. And it turns out that the doctor's plan was to absorb the intelligence and like be able to contain it, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But now all they've done is snap the connection off, and now the intelligence is just still out there, free to not come back until 2011 in the Snowmen.
Right.
No, 2012.
Yeah. Also, apparently, the great intelligence can also travel through time.
Oh yeah, because it's like
Victorian backwards in time. Yeah, Victorian times. So that's interesting.
I like to think it goes off like a balloon, you know, like, it's like
yeah. That's good. That is good. I just like thinking that House is actually the great intelligence.
Headcanon.
I'd be interested in rewatching that and see if it's still like that still holds up, or if they changed enough of it that like it can't. But
where they like just changed the name.
Yeah, I really do like the idea of that's where it went. I think that's cool.
Scott, you mentioned it at the beginning of the episode. Would you mind kind of walking the listener through the last beat, the last joke of Web of Fear?
Oh yeah. So the doctor, they leave. So what I think is funny about this moment is like, this whole time, I don't think we've really talked about him really at all, is the reporter.
The scumbag kind of,
scumbag reporter that's been through this whole story. He's just like, so clearly you're going to be a hero to all of London, and we need to like talk to you, and like I'm going to interview you, and the doctor's immediately just like, no interviews, goodbye, and just leaves and never sees Travers again. And Travers seems like very heartbroken by this a little bit, that he's never going to see his friend. And then they all wander off, and the doctor's telling them to hurry, and they're like, what's the hurry? We don't even know where we're going. And we got to search all of these tunnels for the TARDIS. And he's like, yeah, but it doesn't matter. Like, we need to hurry because they could turn on the trains at any second. And the doctor and Victoria, or Jamie and the Victoria, are both like, trains? And then they just run off camera. And then that's
Jinkies.
And then that's it. I guess we just assume that they will find the TARDIS and head off to their next adventure.
I love it. I think they should end the show like that more now.
Yeah. On like a very silly beat.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Web of Fear.
The Web of Fear.
Closing thoughts, gentlemen?
I really like the vibes of this heading into spooky season.
Yeah.
Definitely.
It's good.
It's
good.
Be a good one to put on. Well, it's not visually. You could like put it on mute and play it at a party, but yeah, it does have some cool black and white paranoid vibes.
For sure. Unfortunately, I don't think the spooky vibes continue into our story next week, in which we cover the Sea Devils. I don't know that one's particularly spooky.
From their upcoming spinoff, The House of Blood and Pain?
Yes, correct. Correct.
What's
is
it
its
called?
Full Christian name. The war between the land and the sea.
Okay. It's not that complicated. Yep. I don't know why I can't remember it.
Because it's long.
Okay.
It's just long. I get it. But yeah, Sea Devils next week. Back to the Third Doctor. It doesn't have spooky vibes, but I remember that episode having pretty good vibes just in general. Kind of nice, like seafaring vibes, I think. And there's some good master stuff in it, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So looking forward to checking that out next week. And yeah, I guess that's it. I guess we're done here. Are you on Discord? You should be. Hit the link. Join the Discord. Talk about Doctor Who with other like-minded cool people on our Discord server. And check out the Patreon if you want. Anyway, we'll talk to you next week. Sea Devils, bye!